Really appreciate everybody coming in and taking the time. What I'd love to hear is who you are, where you're from, how long have you had y'all's drone program up and running, and what your expectations are for today's course. Today's we're going to be talking about lessons learned and best practices for managing a drone program, utilizing DroneSense software to help enable that. So in the chat, let us know what agency are you with? When did your program start? And what your expectations are for today? I want to make sure I hit all of those. So feel free to drop those in there. Awesome. Welcome, David.
Hey, BK, I'm gonna.
Perfect. All right, guys. Meeting's recorded. We're right at 12:05. Like I said, I like to start about 5 minutes in, let everybody trickle in, nobody miss anything. So really appreciate everybody's time. So today we're going to be talking about utilizing DroneSense as well as UAS program supervisor. So we're going to go through about some of the best practices on being a program supervisor that's running a drone program. And we're also going to highlight how DroneSense can help with those operations. So really help make your life a lot easier. Um, a little bit of background on who I am. My name is Brandon Carr. I'm the director of customer success. So what that means is anytime you pass the PO phase and get done talking to our sales team, it comes to all of the beautiful faces that you see up on the top bar there. So we have our customer success team in here. We have our learning and development team in here, and we have our customer support team in here. So these are all the people that when you're having a problem or you have a feature request, you go to that support.dronesense.com web portal. You get to look at all of those articles. That's what Alex and Mike have been developing for years. You call that support line. We have Helen in here. She's one of the people that receives all the phone calls for us, as well as some of the other members in here for on call. We have David Spraggs in here. We have Ramon in here for our customer success side as well. So these are the faces to the names that you may see emails come from, that you may have phone calls from and whatnot. Wealth of information. Many of us come from public safety backgrounds. Just as I was getting into that. So again, Director of Customer Success. I'm an internationally recognized subject matter expert for UAS operations for law enforcement and response, as well as disaster response. I'm the former air operations coordinator for the city of Pearland. I'm the current aviation coordinator for the Galveston County. I'm also a TFO for Homeland Security SWAT team. I'm also the legislative lead and public information officer for Law Enforcement Drone Association. All that to be said, don't be afraid to ask questions, guys. We have a wealth of information here between Alex, Ramon, Mike, David, Helen, everybody on here that helps support y'all. We would be more than happy to answer questions. And to be very honest, none of us like to just robot through talking through these things. We want interaction. It makes it a whole lot more fun. So don't be afraid to ask questions. If we don't know the answers, and it'll be a rare day that this many people in here from our team doesn't know the answer for it. But if we don't, we all have really great networks in the community to be able to ask questions from people that do know those answers. So please, please, please do not hesitate to ask questions. Nobody likes to reinvent the wheel. So ask. All right. With that, some of the things that we're going to talk about here is we're going to look into how drones can be utilized. We're going to talk about the benefits of those, and as well as some of the risks, right? Like being supervisors, we have to not only think about how we're going to win, but we also have to think about how we're going to safeguard our agency, right? So we have to think about what should we be flying for? What should we not be flying for? What are some good aircraft? What are not some great aircraft, right? Like what do I need? What do I don't need? So we're going to dive deep into that. And again, if you got questions, comments, concerns, drop it in the chat. All of our team will be watching that diligently. So for some of the technology overview, there's a lot of different solutions out there. I mean, especially in today's world, we have companies just popping up out of nowhere all over the place, just making drones like crazy, right? RMUS just came out with their new nano drone that they have. We've been promoting the Sci-Fly aircraft, which is relatively new as well. We actually have manufacturers coming out with new drones every other day. So there's a lot of different solutions out there. And what's really important to remember is drones are not a silver bullet. You're never going to get just one aircraft and be able to handle every single type of deployment you may have, right? You may need to have something with a payload, so you're going to need a bigger aircraft to be able to handle that kind of weight. You may need to get into a nook and cranny inside of a hoarder trailer and need a nano drone, right? So there's a lot of different solutions that are out there that can meet a lot of different applications. There's also a ton of software out there. So DroneSense helps enable you as a program manager to be able to do a lot of your job effectively with a lot of accountability. We also do a lot of integrations. So we have partnerships with a lot of different software solutions like Pix4D, Esri. We do integrations in with Tile Engine. We have integrations in with SafeSky, Matrix Space, just a ton of different integrators. And if there's an integration we don't have, please drop a feature request into our support page so that we can start working with our product teams to build those out for you. So there's software out there for program management. There's software out there for streaming. There's software out there for incident planning, crash recon. What's great about DroneSense is we can help you do all of those things, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. So, what are some different ways that you can utilize aircraft drones for law enforcement operations? Right, if you're a new supervisor just getting into this, that you just got voluntold, there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. Right, you can utilize our software for search a person, whether it's a high risk tactical operation, if it's a canine deployment, missing person, search and rescue events, or search for suspects. DroneSense can help enable you for all of those things. So your pilots utilizing the DroneSense pilot software will allow your pilots to be able to do these tracks. It allows them to track their canines, especially if you utilize MSAT, which is one of our other software solutions that we have. Put that MSAT solution on a canine handler so that you can track the GPS location live on the ground of that canine handler. The canine handler can watch the drone's location live. So if the drone finds the person ahead of time, it makes it really easy to coordinate that apprehension. If the canine handler is still going on a long track, you run out of battery, instead of saying, "Hey, canine handler, where are you at?" And you say, "I'm next to the tree, next to the bush in the woods." Like, that's not helpful for me at all. I can just look at the GPS location right on my drone and see exactly where the handler is. So this is where DroneSense goes in and has a lot of different integrations that can help not just your program, but you can expand into other aspects and be able to monitor it all in one place. It allows for search and rescue operations, missing persons, suspect searches as well. And as a supervisor, it gives you all one situational awareness place to look so that you can see where your pilots are, where they're looking, what tactics are they employing. Are they utilizing automated search and rescue operations that's built into DroneSense software? Or are they just willy-nilly always doing a hasty search, right? So there's a lot of different ways to skin that cat. There's a lot of things that DroneSense offers inside of our software, both in the pilot application, OPSUB Mobile, or inside of our airbase solution as well. Again, guys, drop questions, comments, concerns in the chat, please. Another way that you can utilize this is evidentiary purposes. So what's great about utilizing drones for crash recon or disaster mapping is you can get really high resolution, really high value products by doing this type of evidentiary collection inside of the DroneSense software. So inside the pilot application, you can have your pilots map out a crash scene, map out the footprint for a SWAT op, map out a community event, and you can have a high resolution image of that instead of utilizing like Google Maps, Google Earth, or outdated satellite imagery. If it's outdated, you can get an updated footprint for that of that day. What's also really great about utilizing UAS applications, specifically for evidentiary collection, is if you get very highly accurate imagery for that. There's a lot of different software that's out there. I'm sure you've tried systems like Pix4D Capture, Pix4D Capture Pro. You might have utilized like systems like Skybrowse, maybe even the DJI, the native DJI pilot application. There's a lot of different solutions that are out there. But what's important to note is we have this built into the software. So you don't have to have multiple different solutions and then have to go and feed it all into one place. It's all there. So as a supervisor, instead of running down pilots and being like, "Hey, did you do your flight logs because you didn't fly in DroneSense that day, and did they do it correctly?" This makes it really easy because it's all built into the software. It really helps not only with who flew, how they flew, and where they flew. It also makes sure that they are compliant with not only evidentiary collection processes, but also for your policy accountability as well. Any questions on anything I've covered so far, guys? I haven't seen anything drop in the chat yet, so I'll make sure. Sweet. And anybody from my team as well, if y'all got anything to add, don't hesitate to unmute. Tell me to 1 second. So this is an example of that. This was a crash scene that we had down here in Pearland. This was flown back in the day with a Mavic 2 Pro, if you remember those. So I did this one manually in the DroneSense application, which was a lot of fun. But just talking about evidentiary collection, everything in this map is accurate to 2 centimeters. My data collection time was 24 minutes for that. Data processing time took about another 30 minutes. So it did it really, really well. It's highly accurate. We are able to get all the evidentiary collection in there. We're able to open up those roadways faster, open up commerce as a supervisor, get my guys back in service faster, right? Instead of spending 9 days on a crash scene, especially if you're utilizing older solutions like total stations, LiDAR scanners, even to some extent, if it's an older version of them. A lot of really great use cases here. Okay. Another way that you can utilize, and this is probably the way that most people utilize it. So, as a supervisor, you've probably seen this quite a bit, but you can utilize drones for special events like crowd monitoring, especially if you're getting into an incident where there's like civil unrest, or if you have a major community event like 4th of July, or we got FIFA coming to the United States here soon. There's a lot of different ways to utilize these solutions. And what's great about that is this gives you that eye in the sky to help coordinate ground teams, really show the use of drones to command staff by utilizing secured live feeds by DroneSense. So that's a great question. Marcus asked, do you have the ability to do crowd count? Not yet. It's something we're working on inside of our AI. So right now, our engineers have figured out how to do active tracking. So we are already finding where there are people and cars. What we're working on is actually counting all of that and then having a place to display that for you. Absolutely. Just not yet. Yeah, no, great question. Thank you for the question. Another great example of that is quick reaction forces. So specifically for the event that you see in this on the screen there, that one was Latino Fest down here in Galveston a few years back. What was interesting about this event was people walked for almost a mile to get to this event, and they were angry about it. And it was hot. It was in the middle of summer, and then they started drinking. So we had a lot of angry, drunk people at this event. So guess what that meant? Lots of fights. So what was really great about utilizing the drones for Overwatch is we were able to find those fights when they got called in, and then mobilize our QRF teams for the apprehension and de-escalation of those fights. So again, drones aren't just an eye in the sky. They are there to help coordinate whatever event, whether it's an incident with a missing person, suspect, or a big community event. As a supervisor, this allows you to have that eye in the sky that you never had before. You can also utilize these for investigative tactics. A big one that people utilize them for are narcotic interdictions. So, as a supervisor, you can utilize these solutions and be able to make sure that your drone can see everything that they need to see for that hand to hand. And you can keep them well outside the red zone, follow that car out of the red zone into the green zone, and then mobilize the narcotic teams, your SIU teams, to go and do the takedowns. So by utilizing DroneSense, you can have that ops hub side of the house, push that out with the Magic Video Link to all of those different teams. You can track where they are. You can track what they can see as well. So a lot of different ways to skin the cat, a lot of different ways to use the software that you already have and make your operations safer, make your operations more effective. Another way to utilize them is SWAT operations. So there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat when it comes to this as well. What's important to note is we also have screen sharing functionality. So as y'all may know, with the Avata 2, like you're seeing in this video here, with that system, that's a consumer level aircraft by DJI. And what that means is there's not a software development kit for it right now. For us to be able to fly that aircraft, there has to be an SDK or that software development kit. What we have done to get around that is the screen sharing functionality. So if it's an aircraft that doesn't have that, or it's a fully locked down aircraft like, say, Brink or some other solution, we do have the ability to still stream the video feeds into DroneSense. Now, you're not going to get telemetry and you're not going to get the flight logs right now, but you do have the ability to at least get it in there. So as a supervisor, you can see everything you need to see to be able to make those tactical decisions so that you can keep your officers safe and keep your program up and running safely. Okay. One of the other issues that you need to take into account is the legal framework in which you're going to be operating your program. And what's great about this is DroneSense really gives you the ability to make sure that they're being flown in the manner that you're supposed to. Hopefully, everybody has had the opportunity to see Let me see if I can share this screen now. I'm going to have to drop and come back into it. Be really awesome if Zoom had the ability to just switch screens. That's okay, though. Drone tab, DroneSense, there we are. So as a program manager, making sure that I was operating inside of the legal and ethical framework as well as the policy framework for my program, I would always go back and review people's flight logs, right? And so like going back into this flight here, I can go in and see, all right, where did they fly? Where did they look? How high did they fly, right? All of that information is in here. Prime example, the city of Pearland, almost the entire city is under a 200-foot UAS facilities map grid. If I were to come into this flight log, I can see right here, max flight altitude is 301 feet. Well, what does that mean for me? Well, they had better flown it under outside of the UAS facilities map grids, not inside of the Class Bravo airspace, or they had better have an associated special government interest waiver to be able to get to that high, right? So as a supervisor, these are things that I watched all the time. In addition to them doing their Texas logs here in Texas with that after action, I got to see why they flew and how they flew inside of our software. And DroneSense makes it really easy to do that. Another way that you can utilize this is in the replay. And if y'all haven't ever used this, there's a lot of really great information in here. So imagine that this was a deployment for, say, a pre-search to a search warrant, right? Like they're going around, flying around. I have to worry about curtilage. I have to worry about, are they invading somebody's privacy? And there's a lot of people in this meeting with a lot of different state laws. If y'all want to do a deep dive into state law, search warrants, and things of that nature, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be happy to help that. But this is a really easy way to be able to tell, all right, did they have that gimbal relatively at a 0, so they weren't obviously snooping as they went and flew down in those areas, right? This makes it really easy to be able to tell that. So these are features inside of DroneSense that we have that can make your job easier. So if you have a Karen call in and complain, you're like, hey, there was a drone flying overhead. I saw a police car in the area a little bit later that day. My daughter was in the backyard sunbathing in the pool. I think they were snooping. Well, I can come back and I can look. We're like, all right, well, let's say that the daughter was in this pool. That's right there, right? Well, I can come in and look. Oh, that gimbal wasn't even looking at the pool. So it's safe, right? Like I can show that Karen, hey, that isn't what happened. And that not only helps build accountability for your program, it also helps build community trust. And that goes a really long way. Okay.
Hey, Brandon, while we're on the screen,
I
also want to show, if you click on flight view, upper left-hand corner.
Yep.
You also have the ability to check your battery view and your signal strength. So if you're running to an area where you're consistently losing data link, you can come in and check that right here. It'll show you your signal strength throughout the entire flight.
Yeah.
So if there's one particular part of the flight where you're just start losing data link and having issues, you'll be able to see where that is and graphically on the map.
Really cool. Thanks for bringing that up, Mike. And you can also click on the top of these as well. That'll bring those down. Great feedback. Thank you. All right, let me go back and share the other screen again. All right. So again, one of the biggest things that you have to do as a supervisor, if you have to try to safeguard your program, safeguard your pilots, right? And so you have to know what different laws are out there, what case laws out there that can protect your program and things of that nature, right? So coming into the legal frameworks, like what case law is out there for drones that you can leverage as a supervisor to say, yeah, my guys did it safely, or hey, we need to go get an aerial search warrant. All right. So these are all the case laws that are out there that primarily focus on drone operations. There's one that is not listed in here that I need to add to the slide deck, which is Stevens versus Ohio. That's another really great one that was specifically drone related. It was really recent. I think it was in 2022 or 2023. Those validate everything we're about to talk about. The highlight ones, if you're not familiar with it, are Perker versus Administrator Huerta, CATS, UAS versus United States versus Breza, US versus Cosby, Dow and Dow Chemical. So real quick rundown on that. There's a whole class on this, but Real quick rundown: Perker versus FAA Administrator Huerta. That states that a drone is an aircraft, right? So all of the case law that has been safeguarding crewed aviation programs for years safeguards drone operations as well. CATS versus the United States is the two-pronged test for what society would reasonably believe a individual has done to safeguard their privacy concerns. These are things that you have to think about. If you have your undercovers call you and they're like, "Hey, we want you to fly," and like, I'm going to ask them some questions. Is this on private property? Is there a fence? What has the individual done to safeguard their backyard, the enjoyment of their property from the public? And is there a reasonable expectation of privacy that society is willing to accept? And again, going back to DroneSense on that side of the house, those flight replays can really go back and say, where were they looking? What can I see from satellite as far as to validate what our SIU units are doing to make sure that you are in the realm of reasonableness for your operation. UAS versus Breza, that's a helicopter that descended as low as 35 feet to see if there was a marijuana grow in a helicopter. Again, re-emphasizing that one. This one really dials into what curtilage is, so I strongly recommend you read up on what curtilage is if you don't know it. U.S. versus Cosby is there is a reasonable expectation of enjoyment of somebody's property that the government cannot take without due process. So prime example with that one, that was low flying military aircraft. Cosby sued the government saying that the military aircraft interfere with the enjoyment of their property, and they won the case. So if you're going to be flying over somebody's property, make sure you're not flying so low as to interfere with the enjoyment of their property. And then Dow Chemical versus the United States, the big one that came from that is they had a lot of things that barred observation from the public, but they're a business and there's no reasonable expectation of privacy for businesses. Subject to change state by state. If your state says you need a warrant for the things, you need a warrant for the things. Get a warrant. They're not hard. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns over any of that? Rocking and rolling. Fantastic. Special government interest process. If you're not familiar with this, I always like to touch on this. DroneSense does have the ability to allow you to fly inside of those zones. We don't do any kind of geofencing. We get that question from time to time. It's like, hey, my aircraft isn't allowing me to fly in there. Does DroneSense stop that, or does it bypass the geofences? We got a support ticket in not that long ago that actually asked, like, hey, I'm getting locked down. We don't know why. I was like, well, you need to update. So if your drone is still blocking you in geofenced areas and you're flying DJI, you need to update your fly safe database, not just the drone update, but the fly safe database, and that'll remove the geofences. If you still have the geofences, or you have a QEP program and you want to fly higher than, I believe it's 700 feet, we do have a QEP integration built into our software. So if you still have those certificates, if you go to the settings tab in the pilot application, go down to the drone, scroll down to your airspace authorizations, you can dump in your DJI information, and then you'll be able to pull in those QEPs. But let's say that you need to fly in an area you don't already have authorization for. Inside of there, you can make some phone calls to this phone number. If you don't have it saved in your phone, take a photo of that, save that phone number. What's important to note is these are the gods of the national airspace. Be nice. There's about 9 of them that work in that office now. You're going to provide all the information you need for them to be able to grant you the authorization that you're asking for. You need to record the FAA rep's information. They are giving you the authority to violate federal regulations. If you don't write that down and you don't get any other kind of documentation, you potentially could be in a tight spot with fruit of the poisonous tree. Okay. Coming on down, for pre-planned events, there's a form. You can pull that form up. It's police and firefighter friendly. It hasn't changed in forever. So go through, you can download it right off the FAA's webpage. If you look up Special Government Interest Process FAA, and you can download it, fill it out, save it in your files, make it really easy for you in the future. So again, just fill out all the required information in there as to the best of your ability. You'll email it to the nuclear launch code email that they have, and then you'll be able to operate inside of those airspaces that you don't have prior authorization for, or if you need to fly over people or beyond visual line of sight, those the special government interest process will give you the ability to do that. Any questions on that at all? Again, drop your questions in the chat. Awesome. Sweet. So there's two different ways that you can operate your program, right? There's public aircraft operations, or PAO, and there's also Part 107, and each of those have their own benefits, right? So under public aircraft operations, you have the ability to operate over people, which is really great. There's been a lot of people that have asked, like, I need to be able to fly X amount of distance, and I can't guarantee that I'm not going to fly over people. How do I do it? I can't do it under 107. Well, you could do it under public aircraft operations, and public aircraft operations is not challenging to obtain. If you need help with that, let us know. We do offer services to get you any waiver that you may want. You also can do beyond visual line of sight operations. Part 108 just rolled out. The NPRM is out there for that. I think they turned off comments. I think they got overloaded. But there's a lot coming out of 108. A lot of things are going to change. So keep an eye on that. If it gets accepted, there's a lot to come. That's an 800-page document. This is being recorded. Yes. Great question, Kent. There's also self-certification of pilots and aircraft. So I want to be really clear, as Brandon speaking, wearing my LEDA hat, as well as DroneSense. Everybody on this in our panel here would agree with me. Even if you're flying under public aircraft operations, everybody needs to have a current Part 107. And here's why. You can self-certify your pilots inside of inside public aircraft operations, meaning like, Alex, you're a new pilot. I want to ominous dominus Alex there. We have the ability to do that, but the agency takes a ton of liability on that. And the real issue is, if you end up having case-hinging evidence for a court case, the defense attorney is going to ask you, who certified you to fly that aircraft? And you could say self-certified. And while you're not wrong, it's legal. There's got to be a lot of documentation to show you had the proper training. It's much easier to say that I got certified by the FAA and I retain a current Part 107, right? And that kills the argument. It doesn't matter if it was flown under public aircraft operations or not. It just makes it really easy in court to be able to kill that question. Okay. Some of the challenges, there's a lot more liability to the agency than under Part 107, but I get this question often as well. It's like, well, I don't want, under Part 107, it says the RPIC retains the liability. I don't want that liability. It's like, well, if you're afraid of the liability of flying an aircraft that you could literally fall asleep and the drone will land where you took off, you probably aren't in the right business to being a first responder, because you waking up, putting a uniform, whether it's fire or police, every single day carries a whole lot more liability than moving some sticks with a DJI aircraft. Also, it doesn't matter, even in Part 107, the agency will still retain you unless you did something really bad, right? Like, if it's something minor that the FAA is going to come knocking on, you have legal representation with your unions and your associations that'll protect you. There's also a much higher level of recording requirements under public aircraft operations. If you don't have the new COW process, I highly recommend you just apply for it. And the reason being is, under public aircraft operations, you had to do monthly reporting and you had to file NOTAMs to the FAA on all of your operations. Under the new under the new COW, there are no reporting requirements and there are no NOTAM requirements. So it's a lot easier, a lot less work to manage. So really great information on that one. And again, DroneSense does provide professional services for y'all on that. If y'all want a waiver, policy, all that kind of stuff, we offer those services. So how do I manage a program, though? So now we've talked about what hardware I might be able to utilize, how it could be utilized. We've talked about different software that's out there that, DroneSense provides it all in one nice place. We've talked a little bit about waivers and how to get the program up and running, and, pun intended there. Now we're going to talk about policy development, resource allocation and budgeting, pilot training and certification, and risk management and safety protocols, all things that DroneSense makes your life super easy on. And we'll show you where those systems are. So some of the things that we like to talk about here, your drone policy should at bare minimum talk about approved use. What will you fly for? What won't you fly for? And again, going back into those flight logs, like we showed a little bit earlier, you need to think about how you are going to have your pilots type something in, right? Like, going back into the flight logs, there's always a notes section. Even if you don't have Texas logs turned on, there's a notes section. If your pilots are flying an aircraft, I strongly advise you to have all of your pilots type a narrative. I'm not saying you have to type a dissertation, but have them type something in there, why they were flying and what was the objective and who approved it. At bare minimum, those are the basics that you should have in every single one of your flights. what data was collected? Did they take photos? Did they take evidence? And what happened with that evidence, right? Whether it's a training photo and you were on city property, or if you were out in a legitimate incident, what did happen with that imagery? Because what you don't want is there to be floating around evidence or floating around photos that you had no idea that got taken. And then you have a Karen call in and complain in your pilots. And turns out they got some stuff they probably shouldn't have because they got bored and wanted to test Zoom. Right. So make sure that you have some way to document that. Position expectations. Who runs your program? What is a pilot supposed to do? What are they expected to do? Do you have a data manager, a maintenance compliance officer? Depending on how large your program is, that may all be one person, but you need to articulate that that individual is doing all of these things and they are expected to do those things, right? Internal and external reporting requirements. If your state laws require you to do different types of reports, I know that there's multiple states all over the country that have multiple type of reporting requirements. Make sure that those are being documented. DroneSense makes that super easy to be able to log that inside of our system. What is your maintenance plan, right? Like, how often are you going to be requiring your people to check firmware? How often are you going to be requiring them to check batteries and things of that nature? What's great about our software, again, is we offer that capability inside of our maintenance tab. So I'm going to kill this screen, jumped over to the other one again. Let's see. Stop sharing. Again, guys, if y'all have questions, please drop them in the chat. Okay. So again, yeah, go ahead. So I heard somebody talk.
Yeah, Kent had his hand raised.
Go ahead, Kent. Kent did ask a question, so I just want to make sure.
I think that was answered about the recording.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Kent, all good? Good to pause. Perfect. Good call, Mike. On the left-hand side over here under menu, this is where we have a lot of different features in here. So in maintenance, the one that I really like to highlight is actually Sprague's maintenance schedule that he has for his Mavic. I mean, it's beautiful. He broke everything down. Like this is a great example of what a monthly check should look like, right? We can see that the last time that this check was done was on 7/28/2025 at 3:46 p.m. He has it broken all the way down. Inspect airframe sensors and cameras, inspect props. But it goes one step further, right? If he wanted to call me and say, Brendan, I need you to check this aircraft I mailed over to you. It's up on its maintenance inspection. I can click on this and it will articulate exactly what needs to be done. And I can pass, fail, or skip it, right? And so what that does is it makes sure that all of your programs and all of your aircraft are mission ready. One thing that I run into quite a bit whenever I'm talking to a bunch of agencies is they don't think about their drones as another vehicle, right? Like if you're going to go check out a unit, what do you have to do? You got to do the visual inspection sheet, right? On that vehicle. Does it have oil? Are the tires aired up? Are there any new scratch or dents that the previous officer didn't report, right? Especially with share car programs. A drone is no different. You have to make sure that that aircraft is airworthy and your program has good fleet maintenance. As a program manager, the last thing you want is an aircraft falling out of the air. But if it does, you want to make sure that you had good documentation to say this was not a pilot error. This was a mechanical failure. We have been checking this often to make sure that it was mission ready. The last check that was done on the 28th, it was in good working order. So we can validate that it was if this was a pilot error or not. And if it wasn't, why did it fail? Did it get missed in the maintenance or did something just finally give way? Right. But if you're not tracking any of that, it makes it really difficult for you to make sure your program is operation ready. Okay. Saw the text move. I want to make sure I didn't miss something. Can we get a list of those maintenance? Can we get a list of those maintenance details and schedules so that they can be added into the maintenance tab? We can definitely work with you to help build that out. So we don't have an easy way to export that right now, but we can absolutely go through those and help you get it built out, JR. Does DroneSense or LEDA have recorded webinar recording UAS case law? Yes to both. So I did the recording for LEDA. So that should be in the forum, if I'm not mistaken, on there. Great question, Adam. Okay. Inside the maintenance, and again, build this out. This could be whatever you want it to be. This is a really great example of a monthly inspection, but you can make this as robust or as finite as you want it to be. If you want it to flag after every flight, swap out props. We don't recommend it, but you can do that. You just have to build it out in the maintenance procedures. What's also really great is you can build it out for all kinds of different things, not just aircraft, but you could also do batteries and remotes and whatnot. What's also really great is Alex and Mike built out a really great support article on how to manage maintenance. And at the very top up here, we have a real quick link. If you click on it, that's going to take you direct to the Getting Started with Maintenance Features support tab. And if you go through it, it breaks everything down on how to do everything inside that maintenance tab. And we have that same kind of integration in multiple locations throughout our software. But this is just a really good opportunity to highlight that integration. Also, going into maintenance and taking care of your program, you also want to make sure that you have aircraft that are not being overworked. So one of the things that I did early on is I came in and I looked at batteries, right? So what you can do inside of your hardware tab is you can go into batteries and then you can filter out. Let's say I only want to look at M300 batteries, right? And then I'm going to filter the flights by flight's highest. Now you'll notice this battery set has 213, 212 flights on this battery. The next battery set, 75. The next battery set, 40. It just gets worse and worse, right? So what does that mean? That means that our pilots with DroneSense are getting their M400 or their M300 batteries out of the left side of the case, as human nature is, putting it in the drone, doing their thing, pulling it out, putting it right back in the left side, and then they just rinse, lather, repeat, right? Well, as a UAS program manager, that's burning up batteries. And what does that mean? That means that's eating my budget, because now I'm going to be buying batteries more often than I should, because one battery is getting overworked and the rest of them are rotting. Right. And batteries are expensive, right? The M300 battery set's about $1,500 for the pair. So that's a lot of money. That's another license of DroneSense for one of your aircraft, right? So there's a lot of use there in taking a look at those. You always want to make sure that you're monitoring that. If you're going to monitor anything, it's batteries for your drone program there. Okay. Moving on. Where did it go? There it is. So maintenance plans, really big one. Training requirements, also put that in there. Inside of DroneSense, you have the ability to build out training protocols under the training tab. So some of the things that we highly recommend you put into there are Part 107 at bare minimum. Track that every 2 years. Get your certifications from everybody and put in the renewal date for everyone, when they did their recurrency, when they got their initial, so that you can make sure that everybody is compliant. Another one that we utilized for Pearland was we did Part 107 every 2 years. We did the LEDA NIST qualification Type 1, Type 2 standard every year for our annual flight qual. And then every 120 days, we did a night operations course, a search of person course, a mapping course, and a tactical entry course. And so we tracked all of that inside of DroneSense, and that was in our departmental policy that our people had to attend in order to be deployment ready, right? Because this is a perishable skill. If they're only flying once a year, they're not going to be able to get out there and do the job effectively. So you want to make sure that they're attending training. You want to make sure that they're attending training at a healthy cadence. Selection process for new pilots and onboarding requirements, and incident reporting requirements as well when a crash happens. Don't forget, inside of DroneSense, we also have that feature, so that if you have any kind of problem, whether it's a crash or you're having issues, don't hesitate to put them in that incident report, so that way you have a log of how often things are not going according to plan. And what's also important, like, yeah, that's a graveyard of all the failures, but what's really great is that shows that you've gone through some issues and y'all still have a successful program, right? This shows that y'all have a good operating safety culture, because not only are you documenting those, you're learning from those. Don't forget, DroneSense also has the ability to export out everything inside of our software, right? So inside of our software, you have the ability to export out in a CSV or PDF format all kinds of different things. So if I were to come back into our flight logs here, if you look up here in the top right-hand corner, we have this drop-down arrow for downloading to a CSV format. That'll give you all the raw data inside of our software. We also have the ability to do reporting information as well. So if you want to get an overall summary of your entire program activity inside of the date range that's provided for you up here, you can do that. And that is really important to make sure that you're giving it to your command staff, right? You have to be a cheerleader for your own program so that you can keep it relevant, so that you can keep it top of mind with chief, and you can continue to get that community and agency buy-in. Thought I just saw another hand pop up, so I just want to make sure I didn't miss it. So make sure that you're all doing that. Export that data out, make a report, tabulate how often you're deploying year over year, tabulate how often you're flying for different type of operations, tabulate how often you're finding people. All of that information is highly important, because when you put in a budget request, be like, yeah, I would like the latest and greatest DJI M9000, right? Well, chief is going to ask, how much is it? Why do you need it? And if you don't have that documentation, it's going to make it really challenging. David.
Hey, Brendan, I just wanted to piggyback on what you said. And for those folks that are on the call that have not used the new summary report, it is a wonderful tool and really gives you an incredible, really overview of your program. So it's going to output as a PDF report. You enter the date range. Now, one recommendation is make sure under the master DroneSense account that the administrator has added in an image for your agency, whether it's a coin, patch, badge, whatever it is, because on the first page of that PDF, that is going to populate, and it looks really professional, really polished. You know, it's going to show all of the mission information, how many flights, how much time, pilot information, training hours versus operational hours. There's actually a page with essentially a heat map of days of the week and times of the day that your team was most active. It is really one of the greatest things that I think we've pushed out in a long time. So if you haven't used it, I encourage you to get out and run a summary report to take a look at what information is included in that.
Absolutely. Thanks, David. So another aspect, again, just going back to being your program's best cheerleader, right? If you're a law enforcement agency and you don't have Texas logs turned on, get with your customer support, your customer success managers, get with your AMs and just ask for them to turn it on. It doesn't cost anything extra, but there's some really great information in there, and it's designed for Texas, full disclosure. So there's going to be stuff that just doesn't make sense. Like there's border stuff in there. If you're not on the border, it's not going to make sense. Just leave it alone. But there's a lot of really great fields that you can put in there. So like, for example, these are the highlights that Pearland had in 2022. So this is really easy data that you can go to a city council, a county council, commission court, and be able to talk through all the different wins. And these are all things that are in DroneSense that we have those features built in that you can leverage to make your job a whole lot easier at the end of the year for any kind of reports that you may have. I had this slide in here just to remind me about like a really good baseline on what a report looks like. If y'all aren't doing reports for your agency, this is a good baseline. So this is Texas Government Code 423-008. It is the state regulation for doing flight logs. Every single flight we have to submit to the state every odd year. So we have to type in what aircraft was used, how it was used, public narrative stuff, justification for the use, how it aided in the investigation, as well as what data was collected, if anything, that was not subject to a criminal investigation, and the total cost of maintaining, acquiring your program. So if you don't know like what a good report would be to give to chief, y'all aren't required to do it by state law. Take a look at Texas Government Code 423-008, and just use that as a good baseline, regardless of what state you're in. And again, we do have Texas logs at no extra cost that all you have to do is export it, and it has all this built out for you. So what are some funding options? There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat when it comes to funding. So the way that we did it was department share. We fly for fire operations. We fly for OEM. We fly for capital projects. We fly for GIS. So these are all things that we tapped all those other departments to get funding from them because we're flying for them. So that helped with expansion. So it didn't all come out of the city budget for the PD. You also can use seizure funds. So again, you saw in 2022, we had $1.4 million asset seizure for a catalytic converter theft ring we busted. We can use the money from that seizure to be able to build out and expand your drone program, whether that's buying more licenses from DroneSense, some add-ons that we have from DroneSense, or new aircraft and licenses, right? So a lot of different options for you on that. Generous donors is how a lot of people do it. So Memorial Villages is the king at this. They built out an entire DFR program. They built out all of their drone program just from generous donors. They've given them cars. They gave them docking solutions and aircraft. They've given them licenses to software, all kinds of wild and craziness just from generous donors. So if you have somebody who's incredibly wealthy that's pro police in your jurisdiction, go talk to them. I mean, like, this is what we're looking for. Pearland expanded their program with aircraft a couple of times, utilizing our association. We would do a gun raffle because, Texas. We do a gun raffle, and based off of the proceeds from the raffle, we were able to buy aircraft. So you can add aircraft, you can add licenses, and again, DroneSense is a distributor there as well. So if you need aircraft, get with our account managers, and we would be happy to help quote you on different types of aircraft that's out there. You also can utilize grant systems. So if you go to blog.dronesense.com and you search for grants, there's a really nice write-up that we have in our blog that talks about how you can utilize different grant features like UASI, the Urban Area Security Initiative. If you live inside of a metroplex that has over 1 million people, UASI exists. You can get drones through UASI. You also can utilize Walmart grants. If you have a Walmart inside your jurisdiction, doesn't matter how many, you can hit each one. You can get up to $5,000 from the manager and then cut you a check. You also can go through Police One, Fire One. Both have grant funding opportunities for you as well. If you are on a coastline, you can utilize the port security grants by the Coast Guard for counterterrorism maritime grants. There's all kinds of grant funding options that are out there. What's important to note, DJI can be grant funded, but it's incredibly rare, especially since they're on the commerce list. However, there have been agencies that have gotten millions of dollars to buy DJI through federal grants. There's just really challenging to get it. But you can utilize these grant funding opportunities to purchase software like DroneSense, or you can grant fund the Paradanophes UKRs that we also offer. So a lot of different ways to skin the cat when it comes to utilizing grant opportunities for DroneSense. I always like to really harp on pilot training and certification. Again, you have to train your people. Think about it as like 107 is going through the academy. Nobody was a good cop. Nobody was a good firefighter fresh out of the academy, right? We had to go through the academy, and then we had to go through FTO, and then we had to go and learn the hard way, right? All on our lonesome. You have to train not just on what Part 107 says, but pilot skills as well as actual scenario-based training skills. If y'all haven't attended the DroneSense Certified Instructor course, there is scenario-driven training built into that course as well. I strongly advise y'all attend that if you haven't. We do have one coming up in Phoenix here in the very near future. So take a look at those. Risk management and safety management systems. If you do not have this built into your policy and this isn't something that you're looking at often, you should be. So what operations are you going to fly for? What operations are you not going to fly for? What's important to note is you have the ability to build this out into the DroneSense software. You can add in your policy in the resources tab inside of DroneSense. You also can build out some of the operations in here, like what are you going to fly for? What are you not going to fly for inside of our pre-built checklists inside of our software that you can leverage as well. We also have flight risk assessments. Those aren't really turned on a whole lot in the United States. There's not a whole lot of agencies utilizing it here, but it is another feature we have that doesn't cost anything extra either. So if that's something you're interested in, again, get with your account managers, get with your customer success managers and talk to them about it. And let's show you what that looks like so that you maybe something you want to expand your program on. What are some hazards to your program and how can you mitigate those? There's internal hazards. The number one internal hazard is the grunts and a lot of times the commanders that are just thinking you're out there playing with toys. Thank you so much, David. David dropped a link in the chat for the instructor's course coming up. Highly recommend you jump into that one. A lot of them are talking about what kind of toys you're playing with, right? Like you're not going out there doing your job. You're out there just, willy-nilly playing with your toys. Well, that's where having all of those stats fights that argument there. And so really understand how you can export that data out in DroneSense so that you can fight that battle. External issues. Yeah, exactly, Matt. Tools, not toys. external hazards to your program, right? That's not always power lines and birds. That could be your own external pressures like community engagements, community accountability. Those are things that you really have to think about. And that's where having that transparency and all of those flight logs available to the public makes it really easy to be able to track that. Regulatory compliance, again, watch those flight logs. As a program manager, you really need to make sure your people in every single flight are flying within departmental policy and federal or state regulations. Of course, optics. Again, if you have a Karen call in and complain, talk to them, bring them in, show them what all you do and how you track it, because that helps get a naysayer on the right track with a winner, right? Privacy concerns, again, that ropes into regulatory compliance, and of course, toxic pilots. Unfortunately, we had this issue apparently, and we had a pilot very early on that just got real disgruntled. Right, like he was like, I never find anybody, or it's too much of a hassle to get a Part 107 Lance authorization. Like just not really helpful. You need to have data in DroneSense that you can track. If that pilot's diving in his operations, that means he's not going to be operational ready, right? Which means he's going to be behind the curve on when he flies and being successful. So have a way to mitigate toxic pilots, have a way to track what a pilot's doing and how they're doing things. So again, when you're doing mission planning for operations, you always want to make sure that your people are going to be ready and you can manage airspace for that so that you can make sure you have a successful event. If you're going to be flying, think about the mission planning process. First, what mission are you going to be flying for? What payloads do you need to successfully accomplish the mission from the payloads? What environment am I going to be flying in? Is it going to be raining? Do I need an IP rated aircraft? And then last but not least, UAS selection. So this is always the workflow whenever you're being tasked with an operation on mission, payload, environment, aircraft. There's a lot of different solutions out there with a lot of different payloads. Again, DroneSense supports a ton of aircraft, not just DJI and Autel. We support Vesper. We support Paradenofi USA and UKRs. We have screen sharing for all kinds of other aircraft. We support Skydio. A lot of different solutions out there, a lot of different ways to skin the cat. So don't get pigeonholed into only having one aircraft. Another thing that I see a lot is the lack of changing exposure. We are not going in and trying to take a photo and frame it on a wall. We're trying to find a missing kid. So don't be afraid to adjust your exposure, blow it out, make it look hideous. But that's going to allow you to see deep into wood lines. It's going to allow you to see deep into shadows. And don't forget, in our pilot application, just holding onto the screen there, it'll create a box with a little slider on the right. That slider on the right, you push the ball up, that's going to increase your exposure. It will not only do it for the pilot, but it'll also translate to OpSub. So if you have multiple eyes helping you look for that individual, they'll be able to see the same thing. So don't get pigeonholed into only using auto exposure. Next, again, environment. We support a ton of different aircraft. If you need something that is IP rated, feel free to select that. We do support a lot of those solutions. And then last but not least, your aircraft selection after that. So I got some aircraft on here that's kind of interesting, right? All of these, if you'll notice, none of them have an SDK. So I like to bring this one up. And the reason being is just because it's not on our supported drones webpage inside of our support.dronesense.com web portal there, doesn't mean we can't get it into DroneSense. We've brought in all kinds of craziness into DroneSense, including every aircraft that's on this screen. So just because it's not on the supported list doesn't mean you're out of luck. Okay, there's a lot of different ways to skin that cat. So there's a lot of different solutions that you can do as well when it comes to your operations, specifically with SWAT operations, right? You want to make sure that you know what the goals are, going back to what is your mission, and then attack that, right? Think about how you're going to articulate it to ground crews. How are you going to articulate it to people who have no idea what a drone is, right? You want to make sure you have common terminology. Prime example. For a long time, their Parentland SWAT team used for the directions of the building, we use Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta. Now we're utilizing the common terminology for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides, right? Which is what fire departments use. It's what federal teams use. So make sure that you understand what the people on the ground are going to be able to understand for what you're seeing in the air, especially if you're the team lead. Okay, I'm going to jump forward a little bit. Another one that I like to highlight is if you're the supervisor and you're watching these feeds, make sure that your pilots are utilizing all the tools available to them. Okay. So prime example, you see this individual, it looks like he's just wearing a bathing suit and it looks like he's got his hands in the air, right? What can we see? Well, I can see it looks like he's unarmed. It looks like he's compliant, right? Like this is what's going to be on the news. Well, this guy got lit up. He died. Okay. We shot him like crazy. And the reason being is if you can look in this screen, you'll notice you can now see a bar in this hand. That's the other side of a shotgun. So what happened was very shortly after it looked like this, he brought that shotgun down and decided to do suicide by cop. Okay. So if you see your pilots just looking at it, they're not adjusting exposure. They're not checking thermal even in the daylight. Radio your pilots and make sure that they're successful. Hey, let me see thermal. All right. Yeah, there's nothing there. Great. Go back to visual, right? Or, hey, there's something there. Hold thermal, right? Manage your pilots utilizing Ops Hub. Okay. The last one that I'd like to talk about before we close up for it, because I know I'm running out of time rapidly here, is the ICS structure. I know for law enforcement, which is the majority of the people in the room here, ICS is a 4-letter word. But the ICS structure is imperative to successful large-scale events. You need to know where you fall in. You need to know what your chain of command is for that. Drone operations fall inside the air operations branch under the operations section, who reports to the incident commander. So tasking comes down from the incident commander to the operations section chief, goes to the air operations branch to you. So make sure that you understand where those tasks are coming from, what they need, and how the communication is flowing. Okay. Last but not least, don't forget, we can bring in all kinds of solutions. We can bring in helicopters, terrestrial robots, submersibles, pole cams, cell phones, you name it. If it's got a video out, we can get it into DroneSense. David and one of our former employees even got a GoPro coming into DroneSense at one point. So there's a lot of different ways to skin that cat. You can look at people all over the place. So if you're a fire department team in here, if you're doing a mutual aid for CAL FIRE all the way across the country, you can track your people and be able to see what's going on there. We also have shared mission codes. So make sure that if you're doing a shared mission code with a mutual aiding agency, that y'all are properly putting those in to both OPSUP and the remote so that you can see where everybody is. You can have that greater situational awareness for that mutual aiding agency and be able to deconflict the airspace. This was one of the last tests that we did. We need to do another one. So that we can do another stress test. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Okay. With that, we are 1 minute over time. I'm going to move to the evaluation. Please go ahead, scan this QR code, guys. Please, please, please do this. Once you have filled out all of the information inside of that QR code, it'll go to David, and those certificates for this course are going to be automatically generated and sent out for you. David, I saw your hand come up.
Yep. And all this is a brand new process, the first time we've used it. So I do want to be clear, this is not a specific evaluation. This is just an attendance record. So the certifications, the certificates now are self-service. So if you want a certificate, go ahead and click on that, and you'll go ahead and just enter your basic information. You'll get a PDF certificate sent right away.
Right. Thank you, David. Awesome. With that, guys, that is the presentation. That is the course. I would love to hold. If anybody has questions, I'll hang out. Drop them in the chat. Let's have some conversations. Again, we do have the instructor course coming up in Phoenix. Click on the link that's in the chat there. Register for that. It's going to be fantastic. It's always a lot of fun. Phoenix is always entertaining as well. So don't hesitate to come out there. We hope to see you out there for that one. Again, guys, I'll hang. Feel free to drop some questions in the chat if y'all have any questions over anything we covered. Thanks, Jeff. Cheers. Appreciate you, Adam. Yes, you do, Ryan. So that's a great question, man. So if you were to go to the pilots tab inside of DroneSense, I'll show you where to do that as well. So going into DroneSense, if you go to your pilots tab, in every single one of our tabs here, we have the ability to export data. So in the top right-hand corner over here, you can click this down arrow and you'll be able to pull that data. you also can really dial it in. So if you want to go in and isolate it to a very specific pilot, like let's say I want to take a look at Ryan's operations, I can hit apply. It'll bring up Ryan. I can export him, and it'll give me a really nice data export of just his data. So if you want to isolate it to certain pilots, certain teams, we do have the ability for you to do that as well. Don't forget, everything in there you can download, you can customize the fields and manipulate the data however you would like to. Great question. Awesome. All right. Any other questions, guys? So we got a few that are still hanging. Don't hesitate to drop them in the chat. Well, we'll wrap it up here. All right. Anything new for the instructor course? Did I see that one? Anything new for the instructor course? I've been to the one already, but wouldn't mind Arizona. David, you want to speak to that a little bit?
Craig, everything's going to be new. So you just, if you need me to write a letter to your command staff, we'll make it happen.
Excellent. Yeah, so I hope to see you there, Craig.
That's a really good work, Dave, on the certificates. You can see what Roland posted.
Oh, good. Yeah, thanks for the feedback, Matt. Really appreciate that. And again, we're going to make those look prettier as the semester rolls on, but this was the first test to make sure everything functioned as designed, and then we'll put a little design work into the cert itself.
Yeah, good job, Dave.
Awesome. All right, guys. With that, I'm going to close it down. Appreciate y'all. Hope to see y'all on the next one. Have a great one.
Good job, Dave.
Appreciate it.